Moon Lovers' Scarlet Heart Ryeo is considered a classic in the K-drama world. But what a lot of fans might not realize is that Scarlet Heart Ryeo is actually a remake of the Chinese drama Scarlet Heart. The second I found out, I had to know how the two compared. So today, we're diving into Scarlet Heart versus Scarlet Heart Ryeo. Let's find out which version handles the story better, where each drama shines, and why the answer depends entirely on what you watch dramas for. Both dramas share the same core premise. A modern woman time travels to the past, becomes entangled with a group of princes, falls in love, and ultimately dies before returning to her own time. They even share several iconic scenes, almost beat for beat. But despite sharing the same skeleton, the two dramas feel wildly different. To help keep things straight, I'll refer to the Korean princes by their names and the Chinese princes by their numbers. If you've already seen my Scarlet Heart Ryeo review, you already know I struggled hard with the first half. In fact, even though Scarlet Heart Ryeo eventually became one of my favorite dramas, I nearly quit watching because I could not stand the relationship between Wook and Hae-soo. Watching the two of them fall in love right in front of Lady Hae's dying eyes made me despise them both. Lady Hae loved Wook deeply, and the emotional betrayal hanging over those scenes made the romance hard for me to root for. A similar dynamic exists in the Chinese version. Ruoxi falls in love with the 8th prince, who is married to her sister. But here's the key difference. Ruoxi's sister despises the marriage. Her true love died years earlier, and she blames the 8th prince for his death. So when Ruoxi and the 8th prince begin developing feelings for each other, it doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like the best case scenario for everyone involved. That one change made the first half of the Chinese drama much easier for me to watch. And there are a few other things I think the CDrama handled better early on. In general, I found Ruoxi a far more compelling protagonist. Like Hae-soo, she's feisty and bold, but she's also incredibly observant and strategic. She studies people constantly and uses what she learns to survive court life. Whether she's earning favor from the emperor by designing custom teacups for the princes, or using reverse psychology to save a marriage, Ruoxi actively shapes the story around her. Her greatest weapon is her intelligence, and the drama consistently allows her to use it. I also thought the relationship development was stronger in Scarlet Heart. While Scarlet Heart Ryeo spends a huge portion of its early episodes focused almost entirely on Wook and Hae-soo, Ruoxi spends meaningful time building relationships with the 10th, 13th, and 14th princes, along with Yutan, the tea maidservant who becomes her closest friend. So when Ruoxi eventually marries the 14th prince later on, it feels earned because the emotional groundwork has been developing throughout the entire show. The same applies to Yutan's death. When Hae-soo's maid, Chae Ryung, dies in Scarlet Heart Ryeo, it's tragic. But when Yutan dies in Scarlet Heart, it is absolutely devastating because she was woven into the story from beginning to end. Now, K-drama fans, don't get heated, because there are also things that Scarlet Heart Ryeo does far better. For example, Prince Un. While I liked the 10th prince, Un functions as more than just comic relief or a lovable side character. He becomes the embodiment of innocence. His death is the moment that the drama fully drives home the idea that palace life destroys anything pure. Scarlet Heart Ryeo also handles tone much better. The K-drama maintains a fairly consistent emotional atmosphere from start to finish. Scarlet Heart does not. The C-drama starts with these bizarre, over-the-top, almost comedic moments that feel like slapstick at times. The accident that sends Ruoxi into the past is filmed in this really exaggerated way, and the drama frequently includes these chaotic fistfights that feel completely disconnected from the otherwise serious political story. Eventually, the drama finds itself, and once it does, it becomes a genuinely compelling historical tragedy. But early on, it feels unsure about what kind of show it wants to be. SCARLET HEART RYEO also has a massive advantage when it comes to production quality and cinematography. Both dramas have beautiful costumes and elaborate sets. Visually, both worlds are stunning, but SCARLET HEART RYEO looks cinematic. The lighting, the framing, the color grading, the wide landscape shots. There are scenes that genuinely look like paintings. The entire show has this rich, dreamlike atmosphere that perfectly complements the tragic romance at the center of the story. SCARLET HEART, unfortunately, feels much rougher visually. And look, I understand it's an older drama with a smaller budget. I'm willing to give older productions grace. But there were genuinely moments where the camera quality distracted me. My husband actually walked through the room at one point and asked why the drama looked like it was filmed on a GoPro. There are also a handful of CGI moments that have aged painfully. None of this ruins the drama, especially once you become invested in the characters and political storylines, but visually, SCARLET HEART RYEO is operating on a completely different level. Alright, now let's talk history. Both dramas are based on real historical figures. SCARLET HEART RYEO focuses on the Goryeo royal family during the 900s, while SCARLET HEART takes place during the Qing dynasty in the early 1700s. Both hit many real historical events, though the K-drama definitely takes more liberties. Where SCARLET HEART truly shines, though, is in the small historical details. There's a huge emphasis on court etiquette, how characters walk, bow, serve tea, address royalty, even how long they remain kneeling before being acknowledged. Every interaction reinforces hierarchy, and they do this every single time. A lot of dramas would skip those details for pacing, but SCARLET HEART embraces them, and it creates this incredible sense of immersion. The palace genuinely feels rigid and suffocating. That said, pacing is also where the CDrama struggles. SCARLET HEART moves slowly, very slowly. There are long stretches where characters just stand around having quiet, measured conversations. The tone never changes, whether the stakes are casual or life-threatening. And while that restraint probably is more historically accurate, because in a royal court, emotional control is survival, it doesn't always make for the most gripping television. Also, I need to mention the hairstyles. Because SCARLET HEART takes place during the Qing dynasty, the male characters wear historically accurate Manchu-Q hairstyles, shaved in the front with a long braid in the back. Historically accurate? Yes. Flattering? Absolutely not. And it really doesn't help that you can often see the wig seams in high definition. But that's a pretty minor issue overall. One area where the Chinese version often does better is in terms of plot logistics. Because SCARLET HEART was written specifically for this historical setting and royal family, many of the story beats fit naturally into the world. For example, Ruoxi enters palace life through the Qing dynasty maiden selection process, an actual historical event. SCARLET HEART RYEO has Haesu enter Damawan as punishment for injuring herself to avoid marrying the king. But let's be real. Insulting the king like that would have gotten her executed, not assigned to a relatively comfortable court position. The relationship between the fourth prince and his mother also works much better in SCARLET HEART. In Scarlet Heart Ryeo, Wang So's mother scars him as a child, sends him away, openly rejects him, and at one point casually watches people shoot arrows at him. Her hatred feels almost cartoonishly extreme, and the drama never fully explains it. Meanwhile, the Chinese version handles this dynamic with much more nuance. The 4th prince's mother favors her younger son, the 14th prince, but she at least tries to maintain the illusion of loving them equally. When she eventually turns against the 4th, it's because she believes he stole the throne. There's an actual catalyst for the animosity, not just drama for drama's sake. But when it comes to relationships, we have to talk about the single biggest deciding factor between these dramas. Wang So and Hae Soo versus the 4th prince and Ruoxi. Because honestly, this is probably what will determine which version you prefer. If you're watching primarily for historical intrigue and political realism, you'll probably prefer the Chinese version. But if you're watching to feel something, to fall in love, to ache for the characters, and emotionally collapse by the ending, Scarlet Heart Ryeo wins. Easily. From the second Wang So rides onto the screen, he has this electric presence. He's dark, wounded, dangerous, and magnetic in a way the Chinese 4th prince simply isn't. The 4th prince is intentionally restrained, almost bland. His strategy is survival through invisibility. He stays emotionally controlled, politically careful, and often refuses to openly help Ruoxi in order to maintain neutrality. On the other hand, Wang So would burn the entire world down for Hae Soo, and from a romance perspective, that's the winning recipe. Now, both versions of the 4th prince share a certain brutality, but the two dramas frame that brutality very differently. Scarlet Heart Ryeo minimizes Wang So's violence, characterizing it as misunderstanding and circumstance. Scarlet Heart does not soften the 4th prince at all. We see him ripping a man apart with horses, boiling Yutan alive, imprisoning brothers, forcing divorces, and destroying the lives of people Ruoxi deeply cares about. And that creates a fascinating conflict, because Ruoxi genuinely loves a man she increasingly fears. But it also makes him difficult to love as a viewer. Scarlet Heart Ryeo avoids that problem. It allows us to keep loving Wang So all the way through the ending, which makes the separation all the more devastating. And as for the endings, both dramas end with the main character marrying another prince, writing the king asking him to come see her, dying heartbroken when he never arrives, and returning to the modern world. But the Chinese version gives us one extra scene. A reincarnated, modern version of the 4th prince meets Ruoxi and asks if they know each other. Ruoxi doesn't answer. She simply cries and lets him walk away. It doesn't seem like she's rejecting him, so much as she's too overwhelmed to respond. But for me, that felt strangely out of character. Above all else, Ruoxi wanted control over her own destiny. So it felt strange when she didn't make a concrete choice. I wanted her to either embrace the chance to love him again in a world where court politics no longer stood between them, or to consciously walk away, knowing exactly what he was capable of in the past. Instead, we get ambiguity. I suspect they left it open-ended because Scarlet Heart actually received a sequel, something Scarlet Heart Ryeo fans have been begging for years. The K-drama, on the other hand, refuses to give us closure. We get only a faint suggestion that reunion might be possible. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the stronger ending. By denying the audience the reunion they desperately wanted, Scarlet Heart Ryeo became unforgettable. Scarlet Heart has a sequel, and I honestly have very little desire to watch it. Scarlet Heart Ryeo never got one, and I am desperate for a sequel. And I think that says a lot. So, does that mean I prefer the K-drama overall? I'm not sure, because at the end of the day, this is one story told in two completely different ways. One leans harder into the historical realism and political nuance. The other leans into emotional devastation and romance. And I'm genuinely glad I experienced both. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, which one did you prefer? If you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a favor and like and subscribe. I seriously cannot overstate how much that one small action helps the channel. Next week, I'm leaving the world of Scarlet Heart. But I am not going too far, because I'll be reviewing Perfect Crown starring IU, the actress who played Haesoo. And as fans of Scarlet Heart, you probably like time travel stories about heroines who impact real history. If so, you might enjoy my book, Beneath the Destiny Stone. Here's a sneak peek of Fiona's life before she travels through time. Enjoy!
A lot of bars sell craft beer now. I licked my lips. Stuff that's locally produced. I've been researching it and... Christ almighty! Granda put a hand to his heart.
You want to sell bathtub ale?
William raised his pint.
Why should you when the good Lord's seen fit to bless us with Guinness?
Lord, there were more beers in the world. Not everyone likes Guinness. We should have a variety. Robert's mouth fell open.
Who doesn't like Guinness?
Granda's lip curled.
Tories and communists, that's who. You didn't find all these namby-pamby drinks in Scotland.
Old John waggled his pointer finger toward me.
Guinness and whiskey, that's all we needed.
First off, I scoffed, Guinness isn't even Scottish, it's Irish. And second, how do you know what they drink? You haven't been there since 1945.